Today's show is sponsored by Panoptica. Panoptica provides users with deep visibility, prioritized risk assessment, and actionable remediation from development to runtime. This comprehensive cloud-native application protection platform provides an essential, holistic view to secure the entire cloud application stack seamlessly. With the integration of security into the DevOps and CI/CD pipelines, Panoptica fosters a security-first culture and allows users to detect and resolve security issues at every stage of the development lifecycle. To get more information on Panoptica, visit panoptica.app. That's panoptica.app.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from our massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we've got a great interview this week. Coming up, we're going to be talking about leveraging FinOps to scale a startup. But real quick, one or two announcements. First of all Things Open 2023 is here in Raleigh, North Carolina next week. And if you are in town and would like a free pass to go, we still have some free passes available. Link to that is in the show notes. There is up to five passes available. And once they're gone, there is a 20% discount code available as well. So definitely go check that out. From a cloud news perspective, real quick, we have Pulumi raises $41 million C round. Google Cloud did a State of DevOps report, and Datadog released a State of Serverless report. If any of those are interesting to you, go check them out in the show notes. And there was, of course, a ton of AI news, but I'm not even going to go into it this week because there is simply too much. So with that, we are going to launch right into our main segment, which is leveraging FinOps at scale at a startup. And that's coming up right after the break. This episode is supported by Code Comments, an original podcast from Red Hat. You know when you're working on a project and you leave behind a small note in the code, a code comment, to help others learn what isn't clear in the code? This podcast features technologists who've been through the tough tech transitions and share how their teams survived the journey. In each episode, Red Hat's Jamie Parker recounts the behind-the-scenes stories of experienced technologists from across the industry who share what they've learned from implementing new technologies. Episodes are available anywhere you listen to podcasts and at redhat.com/code comments podcast. Search for Code Comments in your favorite podcast player, and we'll also include a link in the show notes. Our thanks to Code Comments for their support.
Are you looking to stay ahead of the curve in the latest trends in enterprise tech? Look no further than the Breaking Analysis podcast with Dave Vellante. This data-driven program dives into the most important topics facing the enterprise tech industry today. With a data-first approach that leverages ETR's renowned surveys of IT decision-makers and insight from the CUBE community, Breaking Analysis delivers in-depth research on the most important topics facing technologists and IT buyers. Whether you're a business leader, an IT professional, investor, or just an avid follower of the industry, this podcast is a must-listen. Just search Breaking Analysis Podcast wherever you get your podcast and tune in today to stay ahead of the game in enterprise tech. And we're back, and folks, good to be with you again. You know, one of the things, if you've listened to the show for a little while, you know that we often get requests from our community, from the audience, saying, "Hey, you know, while it's great to learn about all these new technologies, while it's great to learn about maybe some of the companies that have started or some founder or something, it's also great to get a sense of how are people putting the technology to use, how are they applying it to their business, and ultimately, how are they using all these new interesting technologies that we talk about to ultimately get into market, differentiate their products in market, ultimately help deliver value to their customers. And today we get a really interesting chance to do that. We get a chance to talk to some folks who have been building some systems that are not only part of a lot of people's everyday sort of usage, if they will, but doing it at very, very large scale. So very excited to be joined today by Anish and Jay from Sliide, as well as Ieva from DOIT. Anish, I'm going to kick off with you. All three of you, why don't you give me a little bit about your background, what you're doing today, but also a little bit about Sliide and what Sliide does in terms of helping to deliver better mobile experiences to a very, very large range of companies out there. Anish, I'll let you kick off.
Yeah. Hi, so my full name is Anish Bishen, and I am the Chief Data Architect at Sliide. And I do have, I've been here for about an year now, and my role at Sliide is more to deliver an advanced data platform without the compromise on the analytics that we want to do at scale.
Excellent. Jay?
Hi, I'm Jay. I'm head of cloud DevOps at Sliide. We're going through a rebranding, so that's why I got messed up. I got into DevOps and cloud infrastructure at my first job just straight after university, actually. Not that long ago, just 5 years. Been with Sliide for about 3.5 years now, doing all things that involve tech, looking after infrastructure to CI/CD pipelines, occasionally at events fixing karaoke machines, which is fun. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Ieva?
Hi, so my name is Ieva. I am a technical account manager here at Do It International, and I've been working with Sliide. So Sliide is one of my customers, and helping them through their cloud journey, just consulting and helping to navigate the clouds as best as they possibly can with our help and support.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding, and we've had a chance to work with the Do It team a couple of times in the past. So excited to, we appreciate you bringing both your knowledge, but also, bringing some of your clients' experience with it. So it's always good to marry those two things together. Jay, I'll start with you. Sliide delivers really kind of an interesting platform. It's you're a little bit behind the scenes for delivering to carriers and OEMs for people that are delivering mobile experiences. Tell us a little bit about what ultimately the experience is that gets delivered, and then maybe a little bit about kind of the architecture in order to be able to do that at scale.
Yeah. We're in a quite niche market. We operate in a B2B2C model. So we work with businesses who have customers. Essentially, we create and white label applications that fit our client's branding. So it feels like a client's application, but we are working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So their customers are essentially our users. We don't have a sales team. A little fun fact. Just because of the way business operates, we onboard hundreds of thousands of users on our applications on quarterly basis. So whenever our clients, the US telcos, purchase and distribute devices, we are already on it. So we don't need a sales team because we get hundreds of thousands of users when they distribute. We run a multi-cloud infrastructure out of necessity. Our majority of the business is Android apps. So we heavily rely on GCP and Firebase. So Crashlytics, Firebase, Google Analytics, BigQuery are some of the systems that we use on the Google side for analyzing and collecting Android data from our applications. And we heavily use AWS. That's where most of our backend services are. I mean, if I start listing out the tools and services we use, we'll be sitting here playing buzzword bingo, but some of the big ones are Kubernetes, Lambda functions, RDS, Elasticache, S3, DynamoDB, and many more. So majority of the popular services that everyone else uses in tech, we use as well to deliver this infrastructure and support millions of devices in US.
Right.
The products we have are Android, like I said before, and the applications that we write are essentially providing news content from our partners our content partners, basically.
Gotcha. It's interesting that you are, there's all sorts of different, discussions and opinions about, multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. You guys use multiple clouds essentially out of necessity. It's not sort of because it's cool or interesting, but the way that you have to partner, like you said, with the Android community and around Google, and then obviously, what you can do with services in AWS. So that's interesting. Was that a conscious decision, or was that, that's just what the business needed, and so you go make that happen?
It's what business needed. Just like any other startup, we had one person who knew anything technical back when we started, and we decided to use Android's native functions, which includes Firebase. So we started using Firebase SDKs onto our applications, and then slowly, boom, we are about 100 people a few years later, and we have these hundreds of thousands of users. And unlike backend services, which we can update literally in seconds, we can't really go back and update everyone's phones at the same time.
Sure.
Because it all depends on the user, right? Like I'm sure you and I, we both have applications that haven't been updated in a few months. We only really update if and when we absolutely need to.
Right.
If things carry on working, why change it, right?
Right. Well, and you highlighted it. What your experience is different from my experience, and you highlighted. You said, well, we don't have a sales team, but you have a user base. You guys have an interesting situation in which you don't have control of your user base. You're not sort of like central IT, and you can just tell everybody this is the policy. You're having to deal with all that variability, which has to be interesting and challenging.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It all depends on the manufacturers and the telcos in the US. They can decide to buy 1 million Samsung phones, and then our apps have to be able to support that.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't work on those devices, and then we essentially have an issue with our clients.
Yep.
So we kind of provide a managed service, but in the background, so no one really knows about us.
Right.
But there.
Yeah. You're there. You're invisible, but incredibly important. It's a interesting dichotomy. Anish, I have to imagine, with not only the scale of the millions of clients that you're dealing with, but the fact that you're dealing with, multiple partners, carriers and so forth, who want different information about what they're doing. You're having to figure out what's optimal ways to deliver these things. Give us a sense of, as sort of chief data architect, what are the things that you have to be concerned about? What are the things that you're trying to deliver from a data perspective behind the scenes?
Yeah. So I'll start with the easy one, which Jay has kind of already mentioned. We have a footprint on two big cloud platforms, GCP and AWS. And to add to that, the number of users, just to give you a little bit of understanding of the amount of data that we have to process, we have about 6 million monthly active users, which is nearly 1 billion events that we have to process every day. So, on top of that, if you add the complexity of data residing in two different cloud platforms, plus, our revenue partners spread across the revenue partners. So that requires a lot of processing power, a good amount of storage capacity that is needed on different platforms, and the complexity of joining it all together to make sense.
Yeah. I'm curious, there's been a lot of discussion in the industry about where data resides. Does it have gravity? Is it movable and portable? Given that you have multiple clouds, like how much of a challenge, how much of what you do is this data stays mostly in this cloud and this data stays kind of over in this cloud, or how much do you have to deal with moving it from GCP to AWS and back and forth?
Yeah. So when I had joined, that was one of the key things that we had. We were moving a lot of data from GCP to AWS, but recently what we are trying to is move towards a mesh architecture where we don't intend to move data across the cloud platforms, but have a virtualization layer on top, which helps us combine data staying where it is. So that's the architecture where we are heading towards, and we are trying to partner with different vendors to help us with that.
Okay. When you say mesh architecture, do you mean sort of a data mesh architecture?
A data mesh architecture, yeah.
So the data stays in place, and there's some sort of, like you said, virtualization or abstraction that lets you sort of work on it without moving it. Is that in essence? Exactly.
So we use the power of the platform. So for example, GBQ is one of our data stores as well, and we also use partly Redshift. So we have two massive parallel platforms residing on two of our bigger cloud partners. And Redshift has the capability to connect in a federated way to all our, microservice-based architecture databases, which are which are available to us, and also to S3 via Spectrum. So without moving a lot of data, how we can process it, and that's where we are heading towards.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and make this question as simple as possible. I know it's going to be very, very complicated. Jay or Anish, jump in. So, you have this service which delivers a whole bunch of different capabilities to ultimately your end users. You're running them on multiple clouds because you need to, you have to. How do you think about kind of the trade-off between you want to deliver a great user experience, but also you're having to manage cost for different experiences, whether it's doing analytics on the back end or delivering things in more efficient ways. Like, how do you guys kind of holistically think about sort of user experience for features versus cost of delivering them? Like, how do you technically think about that, and maybe how does the business influence how you think about that?
Mm-hmm. So there's multiple ways that you can actually optimize costs, and there is a number of things involved, right? Not all of them are technical, because there's a lot of team and also operational involvement.
Sure.
Like when I joined, we were about 30 people in the entire company, and that adds to its challenges, because having a small team means that you can't do as much as you want to. And when you're a startup, you kind of have to focus on increasing revenue, winning over clients. So if you have to basically let the cost increase and some of the inefficiencies slide, you kind of just have to deal with it, because you don't have the time to stop and make every optimization, take the advantage of every cost saving opportunity that you want to. You just have to deal with inefficiencies and just win over the clients. You can worry about the cost savings later.
Yep.
And that's when I think Do It came in, because so that's when we started working with Do It. I was the only DevOps engineer at the time and didn't have enough time to work on everything that we wanted to.
Sure.
So we spoke to Do It, and obviously a lot of the main benefits are in cloud optimization and saving on costs from AWS, because they're an AWS reseller. So one of the big costs that we were seeing were on EC2 servers, because we were running multiple clusters in Kubernetes and everything runs on EC2. So they were adding FlexSave, which just gives us about 10-20% discount on, and we can carry on using our servers as we are on demand without any commitments, which was a massive benefit.
Yeah.
Other things were also 24/7 consultancy service. Like I didn't have time to research and investigate into everything. So how I was using Do It at the time was, I would have an idea, I would write down some questions and my thoughts onto a ticket, and then just shoot it over to Do It. And one of their AWS experts or GCP experts would just investigate and research and give me advice based on their expertise on whether I'm going on the right track, or if there's anything that I could change there, so we can be better placed to architect our infrastructure. And that was great, because one of the challenges when you're making changes by yourself is you don't have that person to just bounce off ideas. So they also acted like an extension of the DevOps team at the time, and helping us optimize our architecture and infrastructure on top of all of the cost savings that we were getting. But I think I'll let Ieva go into a little bit more into what Do It does.
Yeah. Jump in, because I think the way you explained it is very interesting. It's for anybody who's been in the industry for a while, there are companies who are selling goods and services. We all know that, but I feel like there's been an evolution in which the way that you partner with companies these days is you're looking for both a route to market, but you're looking for expertise that might be skill set. It might be the ability to analyze your environment. It might just be, like you said, you're so overwhelmed with work that you're looking for not just sort of consulting, but like ongoing expertise and like spot expertise. And so I'd love to sort of hear how Do It came in and was able to work with the Sliide team and not sort of make it seem like you're doing something wrong, but we're here to help augment your mission to deliver these services.
So partially why Sliide is such a good fit for Do It is, so we are multi-cloud, and the fact that Sliide is multi-cloud, and we have AWS experts and GCP experts. So it kind of gave Sliide just a single point, to go and ask questions, whether it would be AWS or GCP. So it unified that experience. And in addition to that, so Jay mentions a bit about cost control. So we also have our product, which is Do It Console, where we ingest billing data also from both of the clouds and basically give that single view with some great reporting capabilities. So it's just become one-stop shop for anything related to cloud. And in Slide's case as well, and so our CREs, customer reliability engineers, they are just really great. So personally, well, obviously I'm very biased, right? I work for Do It, but at the same time, I've been in various support organizations for over 10 years now, and we are just really superb. The way that we come in, and there's definitely that sort of human element, and as Jay mentioned, you can bounce off ideas, you can jump on the call. Our engineers have plenty of time, to set up testing environments, and it's really, we are really, really invested into the customer experience, and babbled a lot.
No, and it's there's nothing wrong with being proud of the folks that you work with being very good. So no problems there. I'm curious, from your perspective, you mentioned that your team has expertise in multiple clouds. Having seen environments in both AWS and Google, not that one is better than the other, but I think sometimes people have a perception that all the clouds have all these different services and they all kind of seem the same. They have Kubernetes and compute and storage and databases, but do you have a sense of just how much different they are? If somebody was an expert in AWS, how long would it typically take them to become an expert in GCP? Because, so many companies are dealing with multiple clouds. I'm curious, how, can you kind of frame what it means that there are differences between them, and it may not be simple to just say, oh, we're going from one cloud to the other, or we're experts in one cloud or the other.
So, personally, I think it really depends on the level of depth that you're aiming for. So I come from the AWS world, and I was a PAM at AWS before. So when I joined Do It, I did not necessarily have that much of GCP experience. So it was for me also a very big learning journey to kind of, get into the familiarity with GCP. And so I've been working with GCP for a year and a half now, and I'd say 6 months or so just to get familiar with the terms, another good 6 months to kind of understand the key differences between the platforms, and then it really depends what you're into. If you're data or infrastructure specialist, it really depends on the personal experience, and obviously if you're hands-on.
Sure. No, that's super helpful. And that aligns very much with kind of the timelines that I've heard from other people is, it's somewhere between 6 months and maybe 12 to 18 months, just depending on how in depth you have to get. So I think it's important that highlighting of, they are similar in ways, but they are very different in ways as well. So Jay, I want to come back to you. I want to come back to you, Jay. You talked about, cost savings being an important thing because it allowed you to, you and Anish and the team to focus on sort of delivering services. The system was sort of looking after your costs for you. Did you think about that cost optimization as sort of a one-time thing, or has that become, kind of an ongoing thing that's keeping track of your systems and kind of, just helping you make sure that you're not spending in ways that you don't have to, even if maybe you weren't aware of it.
It has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Cost optimization is a process, and it should be a process. But if you have been focusing on dishing out features for 12 to 18 months, cost is not on your mind. So you have to take it on as a project, do a lot of the heavy lifting to begin with, so that way you're making much bigger dents into your cost and your infrastructure is optimized for costs. And then after that, you can start introducing some of the processes into your daily workflows that makes it a process, right? So that way, anything new you're creating, you're kind of already optimized from a cost perspective. You're not introducing those cost inefficiencies that you saw previously. And it's always a learning curve. It's kind of fine tuning things. Sometimes you might miss something and the cost will rise, but then you just bring it back down. And one of the things we do is we have alerting set up on the Do It platform. So it sends us alert when there's a spike or a drop in any of the services on AWS. So we don't have to wait until the end of the month to review the cost and the bill, because it's already too late at that point. You have to pay that bill.
Sure.
So if middle of the month you got an alert saying, hey, your CloudFront costs have jumped, for example, you can look at what's happening there. You can look at what you can do to reduce that. Like one of the very real example is we missed something on our application when we were testing, and we released the new version of the app that wasn't caching one part of the page. So when we were requesting images automatically on schedule, it was pulling the same image over and over again. And our cost on CloudFront jumped without us realizing it. DevOps can't really control them because it's something that involves Android team. But what helped was getting that alert saying, hey, your CloudFront costs have jumped. And we work with Do It team to get a private pricing in place with AWS. So even though some of our applications are inefficient for now, we have fixed the issue now, so the costs have gone down. But also now we are on a private pricing with AWS and Do It. So even if those inefficiencies had stayed in place, we are still not spending as much money as we would have, because it cost us around 60% less than what it would have.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really interesting point, because there's a lot of folks who like to talk about this concept of FinOps, right? Having a tool in place to watch out for it, but it almost seems like it's just as important to have sort of negotiation ops, if you will, right? Somebody who, like, you and Anish don't want to make it your job to be negotiating with AWS, but you have a partner that can go do that. They do that quite a bit. They have a strong relationship with the cloud provider, because there's going to be times, and everybody can relate to this, where you're like, I know there's a problem, but I can't fix that problem right now. Like, at least in terms of technology, I can't rewrite the code right now. So I think that's a really interesting nuance you pointed out there, which I think is very, very important.
And I'm going to complement a little bit more information, from the data angle as well, to what Jay was saying, and specifically how we started to get our cost under control. Because unlike, like Jay was saying earlier, that we don't have a sales team, for example, and like sales or marketing teams specifically have, they can contribute towards the actual revenue growth or the cash flow. As a data team, what we can contribute towards is, more towards the savings and, maintaining the same scalability. So we want to process more data, give the users, specifically internal users, access to insights by processing what we are getting, but, at the same cost. And last year when I had joined, I want to share this whole experience specifically with Do It. For us, the small team that I had, trying to understand how much we were processing on AWS, how much we were processing on GBQ, just trying to get all those costs together. It used to take days of, every month, one resource to collate all of this together. And that was the point when we kind of re-energized our partnership with DoIT. And, Ieva was one of the people who had started to help us, where we got a retraining on their CMP platform, which Ieva was mentioning. This is one point of touch for my team now to go and look at both GBQ and AWS cost. Now, every Monday for our planning session starts with just looking at cost spikes that have happened last week. Is it a one-time cost spike? Is it something that is going to happen continuously? So have we put it into the forecasting? I mean, all the parts which you were talking about, in terms of FinOps, this is where we have started to have a process to integrate it with our forecasts, monitor what is happening, put alertings into place, on our thresholds that we don't want to cross. All of that is starting to, get together with DoIT's help. And I think we are in a much better position today. Just to give you certain examples, today we are processing about nearly the double of amount of events what we had last year, but at the same cost that we were on last year.
Wow.
So we have doubled the processing power, but we are still at the same cost. And this is because we can keep an eye on, when it is increasing, what's happening. We can tweak our methods, optimize our queries as and when we see those clicks.
That's awesome, because just in and of itself to do twice as much at the same cost is awesome. I know we've heard of a number of companies who, they were looking at their data processing cost or their data storage costs, and they were making fairly big decisions. They're going to cut back from 2 years worth of data to 1 year of data or something along those lines. So that's really, really impressive to hear that. Ieva, I want to ask you a sort of a different question in this space. Are you seeing it more and more where, oftentimes we'll talk about cost management and people think of this as, well, this should go up to the CFO and it should sort of get rolled up as a big company thing. Are you hearing similar stories to Sliide where, individual groups or different parts of teams want financial viewpoints kind of customized for them, right? So, as Anish mentioned, like there's a data angle that he wants, and there's a compute and edge angle that Jay wants. Are you hearing that more and more granularity of costs needing to be broken out?
Yes, absolutely. So firstly, to point out that's one of the reasons I love working with Sliide is that both Jay and Anish just have a really good kind of drive and understanding about the costs. And when we talk about the FinOps principles, I don't need to spend too much time convincing, and showing the value. They really understand it. They go and implement it with their teams. So just to see that impact is absolutely incredible. But yes, specifically to your question, team leads are more and more interested in seeing the cost. And as Jay mentioned, monthly is already too late. So kind of having daily reporting or at least weekly reporting is really important. And I'm a strong believer that you don't necessarily need to do much else, but start with informing, the lowest level engineer and just showing the cost and showing how their actions impact that cloud bill. And, everyone wants to run efficiently and everyone wants to write good code. So it's not because people are not interested. It's just because, they don't see it. So that's already a really, really good start.
No, that's awesome. We're getting sort of close to time, and I know all of you have busy schedules. I want to ask one last question. Maybe I'll ask it of Jay, but anybody else, feel free to jump in. You mentioned you're a smaller team in terms of size, but still you have sort of huge demands. Any lessons? Obviously, you all deliver a platform. People are very interested in sort of platform engineering. Any lessons you've learned in terms of, or lessons that you can share from a platform perspective in how you communicate with the people who are sort of your customers, right? In this case, it's the carriers and the other platforms. But how do you think about, what lessons have you learned to deliver an efficient platform to better communicate with your sort of end customers, those types of things?
Yeah. Ask for help and early. Because when you're scaling very quickly and you have small team resource to work with, there's a number of things you can do early on, which is, partner with people who have the expertise like DoIt, but also internally, when, for example, way back when I was the only DevOps engineer, the backend teams and DevOps, we had blurred lines where, sometimes I'll be writing Terraform modules and they'll be applying it and they would be actually creating resources on the cloud. So we need to understand that, just because not everyone can do everything. So it's very easy to just kind of put your head down and work 24/7 and try and finish everything you want to, but sometimes 24 hours are not enough. So ask for help, ask early, so that way you're not burning down, and then you can scale very efficiently and you can enjoy your time off as well after work.
That's good.
And I can add 1 or 2 points to that as well. I like the ask for help that Jay has said, but I think for me, one of the key things is complexity, for example, is a big deterrent to speed, and specifically for startups. The simple the solution is, the faster we can implement, the faster we can roll it out. I'm talking more from the data end, but complexity, people don't realize architectures can suddenly become very complex, and that's one of the things. But if you start asking for help and you have partners like DoIt, for example, that is one big help that we get. We can tap into the industry knowledge of what's happening out there, what's new that is coming, the tooling that we can use. That starts to help us in terms of setting at the right pace.
Yeah, that's great. Ieva, I'm going to give you the last word. Any guidance on not only working with the Sliide team, but just working with platform teams that you've seen in terms of helping them be successful?
Use the resources available. I keep telling to so many of my customers that we're here, we're available, we're unlimited, just use us. And I'm sure there are other, tools and resources available, but if you have a chance to work with us, then just use us. We're here to help.
Yeah, no, I think it's great guidance. I know I've seen far too many instances where people begin with great ambition. They sort of want to take on giant things, and then unfortunately 12 months, 18 months later, they sort of look at themselves and they go, if I'd only known what I knew then, what I know now, and could I have made it simpler? Did I try and make it too complex? So I think all that feedback is super, super helpful. And obviously you guys are seeing the results as a result of it. So congratulations. Anish, Jay, Ieva, thank you so much for all of your time today. I know it takes a lot to be willing to share what you've done internally to make things grow and better. So we really, really appreciate the insight today. I will put a number of links in the show notes, kind of highlighting some of the things that we talked about today. So if there were things that you heard today, folks, that you're interested in, or if you want to follow up, for example, with the DoIt team in terms of cost management systems and so forth, we'll put links in the show notes so you can find them. All of you, thank you so much again for your time today. Folks, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, as always, for listening to the show. Thanks for telling a friend about the show. Thanks for helping us grow the community around the Cloudcast. And with that, I'll wrap it up, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.